welcome to Noonzzz. Here, sleep doesn't come from silence, but from a gentle story. You don't have to fall asleep just yet. Just stay a little longer. Everything will feel lighter soon. The librarian who remembered too much. Have you ever stumbled upon a place that wasn't on any map but felt like it remembered you? You hadn't meant to find Gullhaven. In truth, you were running from grief, from guilt, from a life that had quietly hollowed itself out. All you needed was distance. A road that didn't lead back. So you drove, past cities, then towns, then smaller things with no names. The fog grew heavier, the trees closed in, and then the signs stopped altogether. Your phone lost service just before you saw it. A weathered stone archway, barely visible through the mist. No GPS ping, no welcome sign. Only for carved words, damp with moss. Gullhaven, where memories sleep. You didn't remember turning the wheel, but your car slowed, turned, entered. The village didn't look abandoned, just paused. Shutters hung open like half-finished thoughts. Windows glowed faintly, but you saw no movement behind them. No birds, no dogs, only the sound of your own steps echoing through the cobbled square. You checked into a small inn at the edge of town, where a woman with an iron braid and cloud-colored eyes slid you a key without a word. "Room 4, she finally murmured. "Don't open the window at night." You stared. Why not? But her eyes were already on the next thing, or nothing at all. That night, you lay on the stiff mattress, wide awake, with the silence pressing in. Not the kind of silence that comforts. No, this one felt intentional, as if something was waiting for you to move first. Then came the sound, soft, rhythmic, like pages turning. You sat up. The clock read 12:01 a.m. The air shifted. You stood, walked to the window, and hesitated. The woman's words echoed. "Don't open it." But something in you already had. You drew the curtains aside. Outside, across the square, something had appeared. A building. It hadn't been there earlier. Small, covered in ivy, lit only by a flickering lamp above a wooden sign. The memory, Libry, the door opened before you even touched it. Inside, the warmth was immediate, almost too much, like stepping into a memory that hadn't quite faded. Dust floated in golden ribbons through the air. Candles flickered from iron sconces, and books filled every wall. Shelves curved like ribs around the circular room. You stepped closer. Each spine bore a name you didn't recognize. Some were written in looping cursive, others in block letters. One had no letters at all, only a fingerprint pressed into old leather. You reached for a book, and the moment your fingers touched it, your world shattered. You weren't in the library anymore. You were standing in the snow. Vienna, 1942. You knew it without knowing. A letter clutched in your hand, a name on your tongue, Marta. You were waiting for her. Shivering eyes locked on a train that never arrived. It was real. Every emotion, every scent, every unspoken word. You had never lived this life, but it was yours, and then it was gone. You gasped. The book had fallen to the floor. Your hands trembled. From the shadows, a voice spoke. You chose a red-threaded one. Dangerous for your first time. You turned. An old man stood there, thin, pale, wearing a dark waistcoat and wire-framed glasses that magnified eyes, far too tired to be ordinary. "I didn't." "No," you said. "No one ever does," he replied. But the heart always knows. You returned the next night, and the next. Each time you read. Each time you lived a life not yours. A widowed cartographer who burned her maps after losing her daughter. A boy who taught a mechanical bird to sing. A blind violinist whose final concert was played to an empty room. Every memory was visceral, and none of them should have belonged to you, but they did. The librarian never asked your name. He only watched, quiet, patient, until one night, as you reached for another volume, he said softly, "There's one here, that's yours." You froze. "Mine." He nodded, toward the highest shelf. It took a ladder, and both hands, no title, no author, no symbol, just 6 blank pages, and a final line scrawled in shaky ink. "She remembers you, even if you've forgotten her." Your breath caught. A name was signed beneath it. Isla. You looked up. The librarian was gone, and in his place stood a girl. Hair like ink, skin pale as parchment. She looked at you not with curiosity, but with recognition. "I told you you'd come back," she said. "You don't move, neither does she. The air between you hums with something weightless, but dense like an echo that hasn't yet chosen what to say. Isla is no longer a stranger. Not to your bones, not to your breath. There's something ancient in the way she looks at you, like she's seen every version of you, even the ones you never became. You open your mouth to ask something logical. Who are you? How do you know me? But the words that emerge are anything but planned. Why do I know your name? Her lips tug upward, not quite into a smile, but into something softer. You used to whisper it in your sleep, she says. Your chest tightens without warning. I don't remember. I know, she says gently, taking one step closer. That's why I came. There's a sadness in her eyes that doesn't belong to this room. It feels older than the shelves, older than the library, maybe even older than the forgetting. You think this is a library, she says, voice just above a whisper, but it's not. You blink. Around you, the shelves stretch toward the dome-shaped ceiling, curved with a kind of sacred symmetry. The books are real. The dust is real. The scent of paper and lavender, also real. Then what is it? You ask slowly. She lets her fingers drift across the spines of a nearby row, like she's touching old friends. It's a vault, she says. A sanctuary for what the world wanted to forget. It holds memories that were erased not by time or neglect, but by design. You take a breath that feels too large for your lungs. Erased by who? She looks up, her gaze meeting yours with a strange intensity. The ones who decided your life would be easier without me. Later, you sit together at a table that seems to pulse faintly beneath your hands, as though it, too, remembers things it cannot say. Aloud, Ela places a book before you. It's not the one you found earlier. This one is smaller, bound in soft, navy fabric that looks as if it once belonged to the sea. No title, no markings. I need you to read this, she says, voice steady. But not until I'm gone. Your brow furrows. Gone where? She doesn't answer. Instead, she rises, her movement like a page-turning fluid, certain, inevitable. You stand too. Wait, Isla. She pauses, still facing away, and with a voice as quiet as the dust falling from the ceiling beams, she says, I've already watched you forget me once. I don't think I can do it again. You reach out, instinct overriding doubt, but your fingers catch only air. She's gone, just like that. Only the book remains. You don't open it right away. It feels almost wrong. almost intimate, like pressing your hand against the skin of something still alive. The room shifts as you stare at its candles, flicker dimmer. Shadows grow longer, and the library's silence deepens into something that resembles expectation. Finally, you lift the cover. The first page is blank, so is the second. But on the third, something begins. It isn't written like a diary or a letter. It reads like a sensation, unfolding like the slow realization of something you should have always known. You're standing in a golden field. Wheat brushes your knees. Sunlight pulls in Isla's hair as she runs just ahead of you, laughing, barefoot, in a yellow dress. You're chasing her not to catch her, but to memorize the shape of her joy. She turns to look at you, and you know, you love her. You've always loved her. Another page, the memory shifts. It's winter now, a train station. Your coat is soaked with melted snow. Illa clutches your hand like it's the last truth she owns. Her lips are trembling. She's saying something, a plea you don't dare acknowledge, because you already made your decision. You let go. She disappears into the crowd. Your chest hollows out like an abandoned house. You feel sick. You can't stop. You turn another page. This time, it's not a memory, it's a record. Subject, Isla M, red flagged. Directive, memory discontinuation approved. Status, compliant. No surviving witnesses. Memory thread number 491, C sealed and relocated to Library 7. Subregion, Gulhaven. You read the line again, then again. She was erased. Not by accident. Not just from your life, but from history. Suddenly, the library feels different. The walls seem too far, the lights too dim, the quiet too still. You rise, and your pulse quickens. The librarian's desk is empty, buried under layers of dust, far more dust than should have settled in a single day. You step closer. Something glints beneath the grey. You brush it aside. Another book. This one has a title, pressed in gold beneath centuries of silence. The Ones Who Remember. Your name is the first inside. Beneath it, a list of others, some crossed out, some smeared with age, then a line written in sharp red ink, as if scrawled in haste. If you are reading this, the memory failed to stay buried. You shut the book, but behind you the door creaks open. The door creaks, slow and deliberate, as though the very act of opening it carries consequence. You turn, expecting Isla, hoping, perhaps, absurdly, that she's returned for you, that she's changed her mind, or at least come to explain. But it's not her. A man steps inside. He's tall, middle-aged, wearing a dark coat, soaked at the hem. Though no rain has touched Gulhaven tonight, his eyes sweep the library with quiet precision, as though memorizing it. When they reach you, they don't widen or flinch. He simply closes the door behind him and says, "You found it sooner than we expected." You step back instinctively, fingers tightening around the edge of the desk. "I didn't know I was supposed to find anything." He smiles faintly. No one ever does. Not at first. You glance toward the book, The Ones Who Remember. It lies open still, your name underlined in fading red. "Who are you?" you ask. "I work for those who manage forgetting," he replies smoothly. "You can call me an archivist." You shake your head slowly. "Manage forgetting. It's cleaner than saying erasure," he admits. "We prefer to think of ourselves as curators of collective peace." There's something in the way he says it, polished, practiced, but hollow. Like a tour guide reciting a tragedy with just enough distance to keep it elegant. You feel your voice crack. "You're the ones who erased her." The archivist tilts his head. "We didn't erase her. We archived her. There's a difference. You take a step forward. No, there isn't. He doesn't argue, doesn't blink. Instead, he walks past you slowly, eyes trailing over the shelves. Do you know how many lives we remove each year to prevent societal collapse? How many histories we untangle before they turn into grief too heavy to carry? I don't care, you say, your voice sharp. You will, he murmurs. You'll understand, eventually. That's why you were brought here. Brought, you echo. I found this place on my own. The archivist pauses, then turns back to you, with something like sympathy in his gaze. Is that what you believe? You want to argue. You want to shout that you remember driving. That you chose the road. That the mist, the town, the in-all of it was chance. But you don't, because something inside you is no longer so sure. The archivist moves toward the center of the room. He speaks as if to the walls. This library shouldn't exist. It was meant to be sealed after the last failure. But something slipped through. A name, a girl. He looks at you, gaze narrowing. You followed it. You remain still. Every instinct tells you not to speak, but your heart answers for you. She followed me. That changes something. His eyes darken. So she remembers, he says quietly. You nod once, and so do I. For the first time, the archivist's composure cracks. Just slightly. That makes you dangerous. You laugh, a bitter, disbelieving sound. You erased her from the world. And now I'm the problem. Yes, he says, without hesitation, because remembering breeds unrest. It brings ghosts back from locked doors. You step forward, then open them. Let the world remember. The archivist's jaw tightens. Memory is not truth. Memory is chaos. Subjective, emotional. If every soul demanded their grief be remembered, this world would collapse under the weight. You reach for the ones who remember, flipping to the final page. There, scrawled in ink thinner than breath, is one sentence. Those who remember are the only ones who can rewrite the story. You look up. That's why she led me here. He doesn't answer, only watches as the shelves begin to shift. You hear it first, the sound of sliding wood, deep and low, like a groan from inside the earth. One of the shelves pulls apart not just a crack, but an opening, a door carved from the very memory of the library itself. The archivist's expression turns grim. Don't go through there. Why not? Because once you remember everything, there's no turning back. You stare into the growing darkness beyond the hidden door. I think that's the point. And before he can move, you run. The passage beyond is narrow, winding like a spiral staircase that forgot its steps. Walls pulse faintly, like paper soaked in breath. The scent of ink is stronger, here sweet, metallic, intoxicating. You don't stop. You can't. Something is guiding you at the bottom. The path opens into a chamber that isn't made of stone or wood, but of pages. Thousands of them. Loose, floating, glowing faintly. In the center of the room stands Illa. She turns when she hears your footsteps. You came, she says, not surprised, not relieved, just certain. I had to, you whisper. I saw everything. Her eyes shine, not with tears, but with knowing. This is where the rewritten memories live, she says. The ones that tried to survive being erased. You look around. What happens if we remember them all? She walks to you, gently places her hand in yours. Then we give them back. When Isla takes your hand, something inside the room shifts, not physically, but perceptibly. Like a breath breath being held just beneath the surface of the walls, the pages floating mid-air, once drifting aimlessly, now begin to stir with intention, their movements quieter and more synchronized, as if sensing that a long-awaited moment has arrived. One of them, brighter than the others, detaches itself from the orbiting circle and flutters down toward you like a bird returning home. Illa catches it delicately between her fingers, and without looking away from you, she says softly, "This was the first memory they took from you." You hesitate, but the part of you that once feared what you didn't know is fading. You reach out. The page is almost translucent, as though it's made of breath rather than paper, and yet, as your fingers touch it, a weight intangible and undeniable presses gently into your palm. You begin to read, and the room disappears. You're sitting at a small kitchen table. You can't be more than 6 years old. Your legs don't quite reach the floor, and you're drawing on the back of an envelope, while your mother, young and tired-eyed, pours tea into 2 chipped mugs. Her smile is faint but genuine, and there's something in her expression, pride, perhaps, or anticipation as she glances toward the cake she's just set on the counter. It's her birthday, though you don't remember how you knew that. There's a knock at the door. Not hurried, not polite, just deliberate, slow. Each sound against the wood carries a strange finality. Your mother freezes, not dramatically, but in that subtle, instinctual way someone might when sensing danger they can't afford to acknowledge. She doesn't tell you to hide. She simply whispers, "Don't say anything," then walks slowly to the door. It opens. 3 strangers enter. No greetings, no names. Dressed in grey, with gloves so pale they almost fade into their skin. One of them kneels and places a hand on your forehead. It's cold, then everything goes dark. You gasp, snapping back into the present. The page slips from your hand and flutters downward, its glow dimming as it lands. Isla steadies you with a firm grip, but she doesn't speak right away. Her silence doesn't feel distant, it feels reverent, like someone standing beside a grave. "They didn't start with you," she says eventually. "They started with your mother. She remembered more than they allowed, and she refused to forget." You try to swallow, but your throat feels dry and tight. "What did they take from me?" you ask. Isla looks away, the answer already heavy in her eyes. "Your name," she says, "the one she gave you." The silence after that isn't empty, it's aching. A part of you wants to deny it, but another part, deeper and older, knows it's true. You can feel the absence now, not just in your mind, but somewhere behind your ribs, like a word that was once yours but has since been locked behind a door with no handle. "How many?" you ask. "How many memories did they take?" Isla raises her arm, and the floating pages respond as if summoned by a shared language. Slowly, they begin to descend, some spinning gently, others trembling as they approach, until you're surrounded by a constellation of pages hovering at eye level. 92, she says, and though the number should feel abstract, it lands like something physical in your chest. These are all yours. You want to be angry, to rage against the cruelty of it. But beneath the surface of your fury lies something far more unsettling, an echo of agreement. Deep inside, you sense a moment in your past when you allowed this to happen. She leads you toward the far end of the memory chamber, where the paper-formed wall bends and narrows into a passage. There, embedded into the wall like a carved doorway, is an arch that resembles the shape of an open book. Beyond it, a stairwell descends into dim light, where flickering shadows pulse like breath held in silence. This is where the forgotten ones are stored, Isla explains. The memories they removed, most of them were dumped, catalogued, left to fade. You pause at the edge of the threshold. Then why keep mine? Isla's voice is calm but edged with something older than anger. Because you were useful. The word doesn't sting, it burns. For what? You ask, though part of you already knows. She meets your gaze without flinching. You had a gift. You could carry memories that didn't belong to you, and you didn't break. Your pulse skips. You're saying, I helped them. Isla nods once. They trained you, used you, called it extraction. Said it was more humane to transfer than to erase. But in the end, it was the same outcome. People forgot. And you forgot you helped them do it. You descend the staircase. Each step feels less like movement and more like uncovering. As though the stairs are memories themselves. Layers of truth buried beneath time and silence. The air grows colder. Not with temperature, but with something quieter and heavier. A kind of stillness that makes you aware of your every heartbeat. At the bottom is a room lined with rows of vials suspended in mid-air. Each cradling a thread of light. Some flicker faintly, others pulse strong and steady, but all of them hum with lives once lived and then forgotten. Isla walks among them until she reaches a vial near the back, its glow fainter than the others. She holds it up carefully. This one was mine, she says. The last thing they tried to take. You step closer. Inside the glass, a younger version of Isla stands beneath a sunlit sky, holding the hand of someone you can't fully see. But the way her fingers curl around the hand, the way her expression softens with trust. You know it's you. Isla lets the vial go. It doesn't shatter. It simply dissolves into light and fades. They couldn't keep it, she says, because you remembered it before they could erase it. And just like that, the pieces start to connect. You weren't dangerous because you remembered. You were dangerous because you loved. And love messy, irrational, stubborn was the one thing they couldn't cleanly erase. You look at Isla, the truth settling between you like gravity. If I take them all back, you ask, voice steady now, what happens? She doesn't answer, at least, not with words. Instead, she takes your hand again, and this time, every page in the chamber begins to fall. Not violently, not chaotically, but with a kind of gentle, purpose-like snow, returning to the earth it once left behind. They reach you. And they stay. Thousands of memories, 92 stories, and with them finally your name. The moment Isla's hand finds yours, the memory chamber stills not in silence, but in a kind of breathless reverence. All around you, the floating pages pause mid-air, no longer drifting aimlessly but aligning themselves, as if something or someone has finally arrived to witness what was never meant to be seen. There's no visible shift in Isla's posture, yet you sense it. The weight of choice pressing in on both of you. Without a word, one of the pages drifts downward, its surface glowing faintly, not with light, but with recognition. Isla reaches out, plucks it gently from the air, and places it in your open palm. This, she says, was the first one they took. You don't need to ask what she means. The page is impossibly soft, yet warm to the touch, and as your gaze moves over the faint, ink-like script written across its surface, a world opens within you that you didn't know was missing. You're 6 years old. The kitchen is dimly lit, cluttered with the quiet chaos of a life barely held together. Your mother is pouring tea into 2 mismatched mugs, one of them chipped, the other hers. You've been drawing on the back of an unpaid bill, a lopsided cake with too many candles. It's her birthday. She smiles at you with something fragile in her eyes. Pride, perhaps, or weariness, too deep to name. Then comes the knock, not sharp, not urgent, just deliberate. The sound of inevitability. She freezes. Her eyes shift slowly, cautiously toward the door. She doesn't tell you to run, doesn't reach for the phone. She only leans in close, and in a voice that barely breaks the air, she whispers, "Don't say a word." When the door opens, 3 strangers step inside. Their coats are grey, their expressions unreadable. One of them bends toward you, presses a gloved hand to your forehead. It's cold. What follows is neither sleep nor darkness, only erasure, and the slow, creeping sense that something you once knew has been stolen before you ever had the chance to hold it. You stagger back into the present, chest heaving as though you've surfaced too quickly from deep water. The page slips from your hand, dimming as it falls. Isla steadies you, her touch grounding, but she says nothing she doesn't need to. The silence is full enough. They didn't just take that memory, you say, voice still catching in your throat. They took something foundational. Isla nods, her expression unreadable. Your mother wouldn't comply. They needed her out of the equation. You shake your head, reeling from a sense of absence you've lived with for so long you'd mistaken it for your natural state. What else did they take? There's a pause before she answers. Your name, the one she gave you. The loss lands like grief delayed. You realize, in that moment, you've been living as an echo. And now, the missing sound is beginning to return. How many memories, you ask, steadying yourself? How many pieces of me are gone? Ela turns, raising a hand. In response, the pages above begin to drift downward, not with violence, but with intent. They circle around you like silent witnesses, each carrying a weight you can now feel in your bones. 92, she replies. Taken, suppressed, stored here. You take a breath, not to calm yourself, but to feel something solid in your lungs. And I agreed to this. Not directly, she answers, but they found the right moment, the right weakness. And you didn't resist. You don't argue. A deeper instinct tells you she's right. Somewhere, at some point, you allowed this. She leads you past the heart of the chamber, to a wall that curves like a closing book. Embedded within the surface is a doorway, its frame shaped like 2 open pages, the threshold dark as wet ink. Through it, a staircase descends into shifting shadows. This is where the archive begins, Isla explains, where they store the memories deemed too fragile or too dangerous to destroy outright. You hesitate at the top of the stairs. Why not just erase them completely? You ask, daughter. Voice lowers. Some memories resist, and others contain too much power. They prefer to keep those under watch. You follow her downward, each step echoing like a question. The walls narrow, then expand again, opening into a subterranean vault. Here, memories are not stored in books or pages, but in delicate glass vessels, each cradled in suspension by invisible threads. Within each vial, a sliver of light flickers, some strong and steady, others dim as dying embers. Isla stops beside one. This was the last they tried to take from me. Inside the vial is a younger version of Isla, her hand clutching someone's yours, though your face isn't visible. Still, you recognize the moment, the trust, the connection. The memory is fragile, but persistent. She releases the vial. It doesn't fall. It dissolves, scattering into soft sparks, before vanishing entirely. They failed, she says simply, because you remembered first. Something shifts inside you. You understand, at last, what they truly feared. Not just memory, but the way it binds people to one another. The way love, once planted, refuses to be uprooted by force. You weren't dangerous because you remembered facts. You were dangerous because you remembered feelings messy, unquantifiable. Uncontainable. That they had used you to carry memories, to remove them cleanly, to erase without resistance. And now, every lost page fluttering around you is a testament to the version of you that once believed forgetting was mercy. You turn to Isla, your voice steady. If I take them back, all of them, what happens? She doesn't answer. Instead, she offers her hand again, and you take it. This time, the memories don't fall gently. They surge, not like an avalanche, but like a returning tide, deep, constant, unstoppable. Pages flood toward you, each one sinking into your skin, your chest, your mind. The weight is enormous, but it does not crush you. It restores, and when the final page touches your palm, something long buried stirs a name. Not the one you've used, not the one the world assigned, but the one whispered long ago by a woman with tired eyes and chipped mugs. The one that was yours from the beginning. When the final memory settles into you, it doesn't arrive with a flash of revelation or a burst of clarity. Instead, it seeps quietly and fully into the hollow places you hadn't known were hollow. There's no chaos, no pain, only a strange fullness. Like breath, returning to a long-forgotten lung. You blink, and the world blinks with you. The chamber around you is still the same. Endless shelves of memories, suspended in threads of light. Pages turning themselves in invisible winds. But now, they feel familiar. You no longer stand as a stranger among them. These memories, every one of them, have names, faces, meanings. And they all lead back to one question. Why? You turn to Isla. She doesn't flinch beneath your gaze. Perhaps she knew this moment would come. Why did I forget everything? You ask. If I was part of the myth, I helped take memories, why would they let me forget? Isla steps forward, her voice low. Because forgetting you wasn't their punishment, it was their reward. You stare. For what? For loyalty. You walk together through the passageways of the underground archive, your steps no longer hesitant. Along the walls, vials flicker softly, lives reduced to light. Entire identities stored like secrets nobody had the right to keep. They chose you, Isla continues, because you weren't just good at removing memories, you were efficient. You could carry unbearable things inside you without breaking. That's not a gift, you whisper. That's an affliction. I didn't say it was kind, she answers. Only useful. At the edge of the vault, a narrow spiral staircase curves upward. It leads back into the main chamber of the library. But even before you reach the top, you feel it. You're no longer alone. Something is watching. Not with malice, with control. You reach the hall and find him waiting. He stands by the glass dome at the library's center, his hands folded behind his back. His coat is grey, his face pale and ageless. And though he looks as if he hasn't changed in decades, something about him feels as ancient as the dust lining the shelves. Do you remember me? He asks. You do, not as a man, but as a shadow. The one who placed a cold hand on your forehead. The one who whispered, "We'll make it easier." You step forward. You were there when they took my first memory. I was, he says. And every memory after that? Who are you? His lips part, then pause, as if searching for the name he once buried himself. Call me the architect, he finally says. I designed the system, the archive, the entire framework of forgetting. You made this, Isla asks, beside you. I curated it, he says. Because memory is messy. Because peace is impossible where grief lives unchecked. You want to scream. To demand how peace can exist when truth is a casualty. But instead, you ask the quieter question. The one Isla couldn't answer. Why me? He nods toward the high shelves surrounding you. Because you came to us willingly. Your body stills. That's not possible. You weren't coerced. You volunteered. You laugh bitterly. To become a thief of memory. To erase the past for strangers. No, he says softly. You came to forget her. The silence that follows is not shocked. It's sacred. Isla looks at you, but doesn't speak. The architect continues. You loved her. You watched her vanish forgotten by the world, erased by a system she once tried to dismantle. You were broken, and you came to me. You asked not to remember. That's not love, you mutter. That's cowardice. It was pain, he replies. You said if forgetting meant peace, you'd give us everything. You don't realize your fists are clenched until Isla gently touches your wrist. Her voice is quiet. He's not lying. You meet her gaze, and suddenly, memories not of her, but of losing her, rise like ash in your throat. You holding her hand as her name slipped from people's mouths. You screaming into a system that answered only with silence. You being offered a way out. You took it. The architect walks toward a tall, glass-encased pedestal. Inside is a book unlike any other in the chamber, its cover bound in black cloth. A silver lock clasped tight across its center. This contains every memory you ever extracted, he says. Every life you altered. Every mind you made forget. He rests a hand on the case. If you open this, you will see the cost. Not to others, to yourself. You don't move, not yet. Isla speaks again, her voice tight with old wounds. What happens if we destroy the system? The architect answers without hesitation. You'll bring back the pain we've spent decades erasing. You laugh, but there's no humor in it. No, we'll bring back the truth. You step forward and unseal the case. The lock clicks open, with surprising ease. You lift the book. It's heavier than it looks. Inside, the pages are filled with your handwriting records. Not just of memories taken, but of moments weighed, filtered, chosen. Some lines are clinical. Others are desperately personal. She doesn't want to forget him, but she's breaking. I'm taking it anyway. He begged me not to touch his wife's laughter. I hesitated, then I obeyed. The child screamed when his mother vanished. I catalogued the sound. It still echoes. And then, near the end, today, I removed the memory of my name. I told them to hide it deeper than guilt. If Isla returns, let her forgive me, or let her forget me completely. You close the book. You cannot cry. Not here. Not yet. The architect watches you without malice. Now you understand. You nod. I do. Then you place the book down gently, and for the first time in your life, you say your true name aloud. It is not loud, but it is complete. Isla whispers it back, as if reacquainting herself with something sacred. Then she reaches for your hand, not to guide you, not to steady you, but to stand beside you as equal. What now? She asks. You answer without looking back. Now we unwrite the silence. You say your name, and the archive stirs not with violence, but with something worse. Recognition, something ancient in its code, seems to pause, hesitate, as if the structure itself is trying to decide what to do with you now that you've remembered who you are. A faint chime hums overhead. Not an alarm. Not a warning. An awakening. Isla's hand closes around your wrist. Tight. They know now, she whispers. You don't need to ask who. When you were still part of them, you wrote the protocol yourself. If an erased operative regains active memory, initiate purge within 15 minutes. You remember that line now, because you were the one who erased it. From the others, she leads you through one of the back corridors, to a wing that no longer shows on any maps. The air grows colder. This part of the archive was meant to vanish, its doors sealed, its stories buried before they were ever finished. You pass walls covered in blank frames, displays that once showed names, timelines, faces. Now they reflect only you. You reach a door without markings. Isla stops. This is where Clara hid the record. You hesitate. The record of what? Her fingers tremble. Just once, she said. It wasn't a single file. It was a moment. The room is dim and simple. A small analog terminal hums in the corner, its keys worn down by time. There's no screen, only a playback slot and a worn data tape already loaded in. Isla steps back. You sit. The moment you press play, something in your chest tightens. Not fear, not confusion, but the kind of ache that arrives just before recognition. The recording begins with a still image. A child standing in a hallway. Her back is to the camera. She's wearing a small red coat and holding something in her hand. A stuffed rabbit. Then a voice. Yours, Maeve. Wait, don't run. The camera jerks. And then the memory begins. You're not just watching it. You are in it. You feel it before you know it. The way your arms moved when you used to lift her. The bend of your knee when you knelt to tie her shoes. The cadence of her laugh, high, a little breathy, always with a second beat at the end, like a musical note. Forgotten. You feel the weight of her in your arms, even though she's not here, even though you didn't know she ever was. Isla doesn't speak. She doesn't need to. Your breathing is louder than the recording now. The next line of the memory nearly unravels you. Promise me, if they try to take me, you'll remember anyway. You cover your face with both hands. Because it's not just memory, it's loss. You were never allowed to mourn. You didn't forget her because time moved on. You forgot her because someone decided your love for her was inconvenient, and now it returns like a wound reopening, mid-heal, deeper than the first time. The screen flickers. Another fragment loads. Subject MAEV009. Erasure requested by operative 314 under emotional distress. Clearance override granted. Collateral suppression recommended. You whisper, I ask them to take her. Isla leans down. No, they manipulated you. You were breaking. You believed forgetting was protection. You look up. For her, or for me? She doesn't answer. Because there is no answer. You stand slowly. The ache doesn't fade. It grows, and yet it clears. Something too. This was the fracture you could never name. The crack inside you that never closed. Now it has a name. Not Maeve. You say it aloud. And the walls don't shake, but you do. Isla presses a data shard into your hand. This points to the Novellum cache. If her full memory files survived, it'll be there. You nod. And you. She touches your arm. I'll draw them away. They won't risk splitting their team. You meet her eyes. If I lose you now, too. She exhales, soft. Then, don't. Her fingers tighten. Find her. You run, faster than before. Not from fear, but toward something real. For the first time. You know exactly what they took, and what you're willing to destroy to take it back. The path to Novelum was never meant to be walked alone, but you descend anyway, because now solitude feels less frightening than ignorance, and silence less cruel than lies. The elevator groans as it lowers you past the archive's last known sector, below the indexed records, below the labeled vaults, below the rules. The only sound is the soft churn of gears grinding against time in your pocket. The data shard Isla gave you hums faintly, guiding you with an encoded map Clara must have hidden in the final days. The deeper you go, the more the air changes thicker, colder, touched by static, and the lights no longer guide you. They only flicker. Like memories on the verge of collapse, the elevator stops with a reluctant sigh. Before you lies a corridor made of exposed stone and iron, archaic compared to the smooth panels above. This is not a place of access. This is a place of burial. Your footsteps echo as you walk down the hallway, drawn forward not by certainty but by instincts, old and aching. A pressure behind your eyes, behind your ribs, a signal, almost biological, calling you toward what was once yours. At the end of the corridor is a door without a panel, no keypad, no lock, just a single handprint etched into metal. You raise your hand, and without resistance, the door opens. Inside the chamber, everything is still. No hum of machinery, no lights blinking in sequence, just the muted presence of one cylindrical pod at the center of the room, pulsing with dim blue light. You know what you'll find before you reach it. Still, your breath falters when your eyes adjust to the light. She's there. Not a projection, not a file, but a suspended echoer memory core, shaped like a child. Her form hovers inside the pod, unmoving, preserved in a kind of temporal SDA's size. Maeve, the name, lands differently now, less like a word, more like a wound. You reach for the glass, half expecting it to vanish at your touch, but it holds. Your fingers press against the cool surface, and for a moment, you swear her head tilts, ever so slightly, as if responding not to your presence, but to your grief. Then the console behind you lights up. Lines of forgotten code scroll across the display. A message from Clara. If you're reading this, it means the system failed to suppress you. It also means Maeve's final lock is intact. I did what I could to store her imprint before the purge. What remains here is not full consciousness, but neither is it just data. You stare at the screen. Clara preserved something that shouldn't have survived. Not just a memory, but intention, emotion, the fragments of a child, too loved to be erased entirely. Another message follows. This was never just about extraction. You were their experiment, but she was your anchor, the one they couldn't control, so they erased her. And then, they made you believe you asked them to. You stagger backward. The console continues. You didn't ask to forget. You were broken. They offered you silence as a cure, and you took it. But she resisted even in deletion. Some memories refuse to go quietly. You kneel, your palm still, pressed against the glass. And that's when the pod reacts. Her eyelids flutter, just once. And you remember the sound she made when she first woke up beside you, years ago. That soft inhale. unsure whether she was safe. You choke on your own breath, because you didn't remember her until now, but she remembered you all along. The pod emits a low pulse. Text appears across the cylinder. Emotional recognition, matched. Restoration mode, available, risk critical. Do you wish to proceed? Your hand hovers over the panel, and yet you hesitate, not out of fear, but responsibility. Restoring Maeve's core into your consciousness will bring back everything: her laughter, her warmth, her questions, but also the memory of losing her, the decision you made, the nights you convinced yourself it never happened, and the guilt, the unbearable weight of it. But there's no decision, not really. You can't run from what you did. You can only make sure it wasn't in vain. You press your palm to the panel. The pod brightens. A sharp beam connects with your chest, painful. Not physically, but neurologically, like lightning striking every synapse in your mind, unlocking a vault you didn't know existed. Suddenly you are back in that room, holding her, her tiny hands clinging to your collar, her voice whispering something only you were meant to hear. If you forget me, who will I be? You drop to your knees, clutching your chest. It is too much, and yet not enough, because even now, you know, some pieces didn't transfer, something is still missing. The pod dims again, its light pulsing slower. Fading text appears one last time. Imprint partial, core memory unstable. Seek Novellum Deep Node 7. You look up sharply. This wasn't the cache, it was just the entry point. Maeve is still scattered, her memory broken into layers, stored deeper to avoid full deletion. Clara must have hidden them throughout the archive's forgotten levels. And if you want to save what's left of your daughter, you'll have to find each one behind you. The elevator sparks to life again. You draw your breath, stand, and turn toward the sound. Footsteps. You aren't alone anymore. They've found you. You grip the drive, the last piece of Maeve you carry, now embedded inside your neural pathways, and whisper a promise to her, to yourself, to the memory of who you were before all this began. I'm not leaving without all of you. And for the first time in years, you feel like yourself again, even if the world no longer recognizes who that is. There's no map for what you're trying to do, only the faint trail of Clara's misdirections, stitched into corrupted files, ghosted server logs, and now the message hidden within Maeve's imprint. Deep Node 7. You knew the archive had buried sectors, but the term Deep Node wasn't in any of the old manuals. It sounded more like a system function than a physical space, which is exactly why you trust it. They never meant for you to find it, and that's what makes it real. You return to the sublevel, where the walls are raw, concrete, and rusted. Pipework veined through the ceiling like arteries long dormant. Sector 9X, marked long ago as condemned, had once housed early memory extraction experiments before they perfected erasure. The route here isn't direct. You pass 3 sealed thresholds, one of which you override using Clara's key fragment embedded in Maeve's memory shard. Each clearance echoes with an old familiarity muscle memory returning faster than conscious recollection. Some part of you has been here before. That's what chills you, because you don't remember it. Not yet. At the end of a lightless hallway, you reach it. Node 7. The entrance is mechanical, but the frame is hand-marked with a symbol etched in graphite. A circle with 3 lines through it, like a sun that's been fractured. You've seen that mark before, faintly drawn inside Maeve's sketchbook, on pages you once dismissed as childlike scribbles. Now, you realize, she remembered this place. even after deletion, even after fragmentations, something within her clung to the memory of this room. You push the door open. The interior is different from the rest of the archive. Warmer, lined with acoustic dampeners and soft halogen lights. In the center of the room stands a single memory scaffold, shaped like a chair and column fused together. Wires blooming from the top like metal branches. You know immediately what it is. A reconstruction unit, an early model, predating standard extraction tech, designed not to erase, but to recompile. No one was supposed to know these still existed. But Clara must have restored this one in secret, knowing you'd eventually come looking. Beside it, a console pulses. You insert the second shard, Maeve's adolescent imprint, and the system flares to life. The screen displays a prompt. Received 2 of 4 fragments. Integrity, partial, nodal host compatible. Do you wish to continue reconstruction? You hesitate, not because you doubt your decision, but because you understand the stakes now. The first fragment brought back a part of her child's laugh, a whispered memory, but it also cracked something inside you. The return of sensation, once lost, has torn at the carefully constructed silence within your mind, and now, with each piece you recover, you risk unraveling not only the archive's control, but your own identity. Because there's something else Clara mentioned once, buried in the periphery of your recollection. Memories aren't just what we remember, they're who we become when we do. You press your palm to the sensor. The room darkens. Your spine aligns with the scaffold. Thin filaments emerge from the chair's headrest and attach to your temples, reading not just your thoughts, but the emotional structure of your mind. Maeve's voice returns, not in words this time, but sensation. A birthday. The smell of oranges and rain. A song badly sung echoing from an old radio. And then the scream. Cut short, followed by the sharp silence of a wiped corridor. A memory that stops halfway, forcibly removed, but leaving behind the ache of its absence. The system halts, then flashes. Corruption detected in Fragment 2. Source: internal neural loop conflict. Origin: Subject 314. Rewriting detected. Manual override required. You blink. Subject 314. That's your designation. You weren't just the one who approved the erasure. You were the one who altered Maeve's memories during the process. Not because you wanted to, but because someone else gave the command and you executed it. You forced the console to display the embedded command log. The authorization doesn't belong to Clara, nor to any current agent. It belongs to an origin access code, tagged Loran-1. That name shouldn't exist, but it does, and suddenly, everything shifts, because Loran was your real name, and someone used it. Long after you were erased, you were the father, but you weren't alone. Someone else used your identity, your voice, to suppress Maeve's core, to alter the files. And they did it after you left. The scaffold releases you abruptly. You fall forward, gasping for air. The second fragment now pulses within you have formed, fractured by the interference of a second hand. Someone who didn't want you to remember Maeve fully. Someone who feared what might return if you did. You retrieve the shard and stagger to the console. Only 2 fragments remain. And one truth becomes painfully clear. This wasn't just a deletion, it was sabotage. As you exit the chamber, footsteps approach from the far corridor, but not the urgent kind of guards. Not boots. Just one pair. Measured, familiar. A voice follows. low and unhurried. I told them you wouldn't stay erased. You freeze, because you know that voice, it's yours. But older, detached. Emotionless. And when you look up, you finally understand what Clara tried to shield you from: not a system, not an institution, but another version of you. The one who chose to forget. Not because he had to, but because he wanted to. He stands across from you, like a reflection that learned how to breathe without a soul. The other you. The version they built after the fracture. The version they refined. And when he speaks, you hear everything you wish you'd never said. I did what you couldn't, he says quietly. I buried her, for both of us. But you know it now. He didn't erase Maeve out of mercy. He did it to survive. And now that you've broken the seal, he's here to make sure you don't go any further. I didn't come to fight you. You say that's the difference between us, he replies. I don't fight. I prevent collapse. I finish things. He steps forward. Not threateningly, just deliberately. You weren't meant to return. Clara knew that. That's why she set traps even you couldn't decipher at first. Clara saved her. No, he corrects you. Clara fragmented her. It was the only way she could keep Maeve hidden from us. You were the bait. She planted recovery cues into your mind and used you to draw out the deeper nodes. So, why stop me now? He smiles faintly. Because I remember why we made this choice. And if you go further, so will you. You know he's not bluffing. Part of you, some distant remnant, wants to believe him. Because knowing the full truth means remembering not just Maeve's erasure, but what led to it. And maybe, deep down, you're still afraid of what you did. But you also know this version of you isn't whole. He's what was left when you chose survival over love, logic over pain. He's the silence that filled your chest after she was gone. I have 2 fragments, you say, and I know where the third is. You won't stop me from getting it. I won't need to, he says. He steps aside. Behind him, the path opens. No walls, no obstacles, just a silent corridor lined with glass. He's not blocking the way. He's daring you to walk it. The moment you step inside the corridor, darkens, then the mirrors activate. One by one, they light up, each revealing a frozen version of yourself at different points in time. There, you holding Maeve's hand. There, you signing the erasure request. There, you standing in Clara's office, eyes hollow, nodding as she tells you it's the only way to keep Maeve from being taken by the system's deeper function. And finally one mirror shows something you never remembered at all. You weren't alone in that room when the decision was made. Someone else stood behind you. Tall, male, dressed in a council coat. Your father. The memory strikes like a fever. Dream. Not because you forgot it, but because it was buried. He was the one who initiated the experiment, who chose you as a prototype for emotional isolation, who allowed Maeve to be born, not out of love, but to test the limits of emotional bonds, under artificial suppression. He never saw her as a child, just data. You stagger back. The corridor flashes red. Your double reappears. You think you're here to save Maeve, he says. But she was never meant to exist. She was a result, not a person. You're wrong, you whisper. Then prove it. Find the last 2 fragments, and see how deep this really goes. You don't hesitate anymore. Your body moves through the mirrored hallway, as if guided by something older than fear, older than memory. The coordinates embedded in the 3rd shard pulse beneath your skin. leading you toward an abandoned transference chamber on level Delta 1, where Clara once hijacked the main core to store Maeve's emotive imprint. There, amidst collapsed equipment and flickering lights, you find it. The third fragment, it's warm, fractured, but pulsing. This one is different. It's not a memory of Maeve. It's her perspective as the transfer completes. Your mind floods with her voice, not as echo, but as thought. You always said love meant protecting someone, even from truth. But I never wanted protection. I wanted you, even if it hurt. Even if it meant remembering the day you let me go. You fall to your knees, because this fragment doesn't just restore her laughter or warmth, it gives back the one thing you'd fought hardest to forget. Her understanding. Maeve forgave you before she ever faded, and you never gave yourself the chance to accept it. When you return to the mirror corridor, the other you is gone. No confrontation, no fight, just a message on the console. Final fragment secured in Archive Central Core, Deep Seal Layer 1. Security override requires Lauren access clearance. You stare at the screen, because that name Loran wasn't just your designation. It was your father's real name, and now you know what you must do. To retrieve the last piece of Maeve, you must enter the system he built. You must confront the man who turned memory into currency. The man who made you forget how to be a father. And this time, he won't walk away untouched. You descend into the core like a man walking into the heart of a dream he once tried to forget. The stairwell is dim, its railings cold with time, and the air grows heavier the further you go, not with temperature, but with memory. It coils through the silence like mist, thick with the weight of all that was lost, or taken, or surrendered. You're not afraid. Not anymore, because the closer you get to the truth, the more you realize that the worst has already happened. You lived without her, and now you are ready to do what it takes to change that. The central chamber reveals itself not with grandeur, but with stillness. Everything here has been dormant for so long that even the machines seem to hold their breath, as if uncertain whether they are allowed to wake again. In the center of the room floats the final shard contained within a field of soft white light, humming so faintly that it almost sounds like a whisper. A whisper shaped like a heartbeat. You recognize that pulse. It's not a sound, not a code, it's her. The part of Maeve they locked away so completely, they had to hide it beneath your own erased identity. The core that Clara shielded with her life. The memory your father tried to seal forever. She's here, waiting. You move toward the console, and as your palm brushes the biometric pad, the system flickers to life. Not with the usual sharp buzz or cold blue glow, but with a soft warmth, as if even the machinery remembers her. Loran access detected. Identity match. 96.4% restoration sequence ready. But before you can confirm, a voice cuts through the stillness like a blade gliding across glass. I never thought you'd come this far. You don't need to turn to recognize the speaker. He emerges from the shadows slowly, his steps unhurried, his presence unchanged, as if time had folded around him instead of moving through him. Your father, or the man you used to believe was too distant to be cruel, too logical to harm, but now you understand. His cruelty was never loud. It was clinical. He believed in sacrifice, even when it came in the shape of his granddaughter's smile. I see she endured, he says, gesturing toward the shard without touching it. Remarkable, considering how deeply we buried her. You don't respond, he continues, as if reciting a fact from an old thesis paper. She was never meant to to survive full consciousness. The emotional loops alone were stronger than your projections. You interrupt, your voice soft but steady. He studies you for a long moment, the way one might look at a version of himself that diverged, that chose differently. There's no anger in his gaze, just disappointment, laced with resignation. You were supposed to forget, he says. It was cleaner that way, humane. You take a breath, steadying the tremor that rises not from fear, but from memory. I didn't forget. You erased, and I let you. For a heartbeat, neither of you speak. Then he steps aside, not in surrender, but with the indifference of someone who believes your effort is futile. You can access it, but I doubt you'll survive the reintegration. The mind fractures when exposed to grief too long denied. You look at the shard. I already survived forgetting her, you say. This is how I heal. And before doubt can take shape, before guilt can rise again to cloud your resolve, you press your hand to the console. The containment field dissolves with a sound like wind moving through pages. The shard hovers for a moment, trembling, pulsing with something that feels so alive it steals the breath from your lungs, and then gently it descends toward your chest, embedding itself just above your heart. The world vanishes, not with violence, but with light. You fall into her, into the way she looked up at you after skinning her knee, trusting you would make it better with a single word, into the way her arms wrapped around your neck when you returned home late, smelling of dust and regrets, into the night she cried because she had a dream, where you didn't know her name, woke to find it wasn't just a dream. You feel it all, the love, the loss, the apology that never had a voice, and then you hear her, not through memory, not through simulation, but as herself. It wasn't your fault. Her voice is calm, clear, wiser than her years, shaped by everything she endured in silence. You did what you thought would keep me safe, even if it meant losing me. You want to speak, to tell her that no choice ever felt worth the aftermath, that surviving her absence wasn't strength, it was surrender. But you can't find the words. You don't have to. She steps toward you, not as a ghost, not as a reconstruction, but as Maeve. Her hand finds yours, small, real, warm. She looks older than you remember, 13, maybe 14. Not the child you lost, but the person she became despite it. I remember everything now, she says, even the day it ended. And I'm sorry, you whisper. She smiles, not to dismiss your guilt, but to hold it gently. You don't need to be. I made it through, and so did you. The archive doesn't collapse. It exhales. Lights dim and soften. Data cores hum not with urgency, but with rhythm, like a system no longer trying to contain grief, but to release it. You walk out with Maeve beside you, her steps light, steady, hers, outside. The air is different, fresher, as if something ancient has finally let go. Isla meets you near the edge of the tree line. She looks at Maeve, then at you, and says nothing. She doesn't need to. The silence between the three of you is full of relief, of recognition, of beginnings. Later, as the sun crests the horizon, Maeve sits on the grassy slope overlooking the valley. She hums softly, a melody you vaguely recall from years ago, a lullaby she used to ask for before bed. You watch her, hands tucked into your coat, the ache in your chest no longer sharp, but deep in the way healing always is. She turns to you and smiles, and just like that, you know, this isn't a return, it's a continuation, and this time, you will not forget. The end, a story about memory, forgiveness, and the way love finds its way home.